Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Pisgah podcast.
Thank you for listening to Pisgah. We are your hosts, Drew and Mangler, coming to you live from the skid zone at the intersection of Middle and Lower Black.
I love skidding, but this is probably my least favorite skidding spot.
Yeah, it's a fast haul. So let's talk about news from the past week here. The only thing I've got is that we've had some amazing dry conditions here lately for spring, and it's the prime riding season.
Yeah, we've definitely been having a splitter weather here, and I've been trying to get out as much riding as I can, trying to make up for my lost time from back injury and stupid COVID.
Yeah, you had a good month there off. I, however, just came back from a coastal trip, so what's the forest like right now?
Dry. The forest is very dry, like end up on your head type of dry from washing out if you're not careful. The past 5 days or so, I've hit a lot of the Pisgah and DuPont zones, and that's kind of the story all around, but at least it isn't freeze thaw, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not the peanut butter mud. But yeah, it sounds like it's dry all around, but I've seen some ground seep water spots, but altogether some thirsty dirt.
Yeah, I mean, we did have a lot of rain about a week ago, so there's still tons of water in the mountain. It's got to go somewhere. So, Drew, we've got some beta to drop on everyone with this episode.
Yes, we do. There has been a lot of talk and speculation as to what's going on with the Black Mountain Trail. Is it closed? How much of it are they going to pave? Will they just bulldoze the entire thing? And when?
So the short answer to that is no. And to give us the rundown on Black Mountain Trail Reroute is former Pisgah podcast guest and VP of Pisgah Area SORBA, Mr. Daniel Sapp. So Daniel, welcome back to the Pisgah podcast. Always great to have you here on the show. And Pisgah Area SORBA has been pretty busy the past couple of weeks, or actually months. What do you guys got going on right now?
Well, Michael, thanks for having me. We have a lot going on right now. It's kind of everything's ramping up, and a lot of work that we've done over the past few months and even the past few years is starting to come to fruition. And so it's an exciting time. Spring has sprung, and stuff's getting done. If we want to look at what went down in February, we can just kind of go and check off the Trail Crew Leader work list. It's this little list that we have, and we try to keep tabs on what's happening with our multiple trail crews. So we did a big trail assessment and a lot of drainage improvements at the Richmond Hill Park. We did rock armoring, tree cutting, and some new grade reversals on the Lower Black Mountain Trail. And there's been a ton of work being done on that trail lately. There's been a group of folks led by Chad Davis. He is actually one of the board members here for Pisgah Area SORBA. Him, with their company Crankjoy, and then Cognitive, have adopted Lower Black Mountain. As lots of people adopt different trails throughout the area, and they're able to lead work days with the trail crew leader on those trails. And they've just been going in every week and doing something on it. And so if you've ridden it lately, you'll notice it's draining really well. We rode it the other day, just 2 days after this super heavy. We got 5 or 6 inches of rain. Everything was great. It was actually the driest anything up there. And where was the top of Thrift had a foot of water on it. So that's really awesome of them for doing all of that work. Have you ridden it lately, Michael?
I haven't ridden it lately, but I did hear from a couple of people that rode it this past weekend, and they mentioned how good of condition all the trails were in the Front Range, like Lower Black especially, and then also the Sycamores. So it sounds like some of the work they're doing is making some good progress on keeping the trails clean.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to get out and ride Sycamore, best trail in the forest. We've also done a bunch of drainage repairs over in Bent Creek. If you've ridden the Ledford Trail or Wolf Branch, those have both gotten a lot of work.
Another big topic that's popped up over the past couple of weeks is now there's been news let out that the construction phase of the Black Mountain Reroute is about to begin. Some big news. It's a trail that a lot of people are very passionate about, and it's going to be a big project, and it's something that's kind of been on the docket for a couple of years now, right?
It's actually been a few years. So that trail has been on the Forest Service chopping block for a while now. And luckily it's not on the chopping block anymore. We've got a really good situation going on where the issues that the Forest Service is concerned about are going to be mitigated, and we're getting a new trail built.
Wait, so talk to me about you just said it was on the chopping block, is that right?
So, chopping block's a pretty strong phrase, but the trail was quickly going down the path to being decommissioned or, closed. And the reasons for this are, if you rode the trail 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 2 weeks ago and today, you notice that every time it rains really hard, the trail changes drastically. And the fall line trails like Black Mountain, Bennett, Avery,
Basically, any trail that just runs down a ridge line.
right, those are popular trails, and they are no doubt what people come to Pisgah to ride. They're also a big environmental and resource issue because those trails aren't built sustainably. A lot of times they're just old logging paths, and people have just started riding bikes down them through the years or hiking them, and they were kind of grandfathered in, adopted into being trails years and years and years ago. As trail use has increased, then the amount of erosion and everything else has also increased with it. And with that, it's kind of like an exponential decay, especially with the way we get these heavy rains around here. And Black Mountain, for one, is one of the most popular trails in Pisgah. It's probably would you say one of the most popular trails in the Southeast?
It's definitely up there. According to some Trail Forks data, Ridgeline is the most popular trail in North Carolina. And then I'm sure Lower Black comes in, shortly behind that.
Right. But, we're not going to talk about Lower Black because Lower Black, nothing's happening to it. It's been maintained great. Some work got done on it several years ago. Shrimper did the work on Lower Black. People love it. It's good. Good news is Shrimper's doing the work on the rest of Black that's getting modified. And so we'll get into that here in a minute. A good way to think about this is if you're standing in one of the ruts on the trail, let's say up on Middle Black Mountain between Lower and Hickory Knob. Hickory Knob's kind of like when you come up, if you're riding Maxwell Black, then you go up the climb, hike a bike, whatever you call it, and that little top out right there, that's Hickory Knob. You start dropping down and you start getting into some ruts and some really gnarly trail. It's really fun. If you ever stop and stand in one of those ruts, and like if you measured from one side of it, from your left to your right, and then down, and then just look and think about the volume of dirt that, at one point that trail was flush. And all that dirt that's exposed to all those rocks and roots, it's not there anymore. And it's not sitting on the sides either. It's washed down the hill, and it's all, it all eventually ends up in the Davidson. It's a huge issue for the Forest Service. And so that's something that they've got to maintain. And especially with the increased traffic and it just getting worse and worse and worse. So every so often, like every several years, every 10 years, there's, and it's revisited at different intervals and at different depths, but the Forest Service has this big master plan. It's like, okay, here's what things look like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road from now. And so Black Mountain, along with other trails, have been identified as, hey, this needs to be addressed. It's an issue. And so it kind of came up. It's like, all right, it's time to deal with this. What are we going to do? And so luckily Pisgah Area SORBA has been able to work with the Forest Service, along with, Pisgah Conservancy's been involved in some other local key players, and work to get together a RTP, which Recreation Trails Parks grant with the state of North Carolina. And so that grant is going to fund $100,000 in trail work for Middle and Upper Black Mountain. Upper Black Mountain being the section below where Turkey Pen Gap Trail comes in down to Presley Cove. And then we'll call, Middle Black Mountain from Presley Cove down until Lower Black Mountain.
Presley Cove is like the saddle where if you're doing Middle Black climb, that's the saddle that you eventually top out at, right?
Yeah, that's where, you see people coming down from Upper Black Mountain. We call it Upper Black Mountain, but there's actually an Upper Black Mountain. But people are coming down from that to your left. You hang a right and you're like, oh man, the climbing's about to get way harder, even though I've already been going uphill for 45 minutes an hour, whatever have you. If you've ridden what we call full Black Mountain, you get up You do some biking. That's not going anywhere. Killer Overlook, one of the best in the forest, not going anywhere.
With a crazy rattlesnake that lives up there.
Yeah, Grandpa Rattlesnake. You drop down, you climb a little more, and then you really start descending. And so some of that was redone a few years ago. But when you drop down, I don't know, maybe a minute, and Turkey Pin Gap is on the left. And, if you hang a left, then you go on a whole nother adventure on the Turkey Pin Gap trail. Great trail. Definitely take some snacks, extra water. It is a mission. And so at that point, where the trail used to go fall line more or less downhill, straight downhill, it's going to continue to go downhill now, but the trail is going to hang a right, and then a left, and then a right, and then a left. And it's actually going to crisscross back and forth, I think 6 or 7 times. I went out and walked all this the other day, and it's really awesome. It's going to add a ton of mileage to the trail. It's all still going to be downhill. It will still be technical. There's going to be some really cool rock work done. And then that's going to spit you out at, the fire ring there where Middle and Upper Black kind of meet when you're climbing up Maxwell Cove.
The climb up to Hickory Knob will no longer be there?
So you're still going to start climbing up to Hickory Knob, but then the trail's going to duck back into the woods and then cross over to the left side the whole way down until you get to where the hard right-hand turn where the little root ball is, just above where Lower Black is. There's a more not as steep section right through there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's going to join back in, and it's going to add a ton of mileage, which is really cool. It's actually, a big backcountry experience. It was a huge hike when we hiked the other day.
What kind of terrain are we looking at here?
Pisgah National Forest. So I think if I were to describe what the terrain feels like, it's like a mixture of Laurel Mountain, like up there at the top near Pilot.
Ooh.
Yeah. Cross that with Squirrel Gap.
You're ticking boxes here.
Yep. Cross that with, Spencer Ridge over in North Mills River.
Okay.
And sprinkle some Black Mountain on there. And then maybe a little bit of Weed Patch Mountain, which is over at Lake Lure. And that's another trail that Shrimper built. And Shrimper, if you don't know him, he is a great guy. He is one of the more well-known trail builders and characters here in the western North Carolina area and beyond. He's built trail all over the world, actually. And Shrimper is a local. He lives here in Brevard, and he works with a company called Single Track Trails. And so Shrimper, along with a crew from Single Track Trails that he is leading, is going to be doing the work on the reroute.
I've ridden a lot of Shrimper's trails. I love his trail building style. I think the phrase or the wording that he uses is he wants to build a trail that looks like gnomes live there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And, another phrase that I've heard him use is he wants to harness the Narness and he, don't wreck Pisgah. Keep single track single. These are all things that he says. So, we've got the right person for the job, that's for sure.
So going back to the new trail, I've seen information that says that the length of the new reroute will be just over 3.5 miles long. How much trail is being replaced?
Okay, so right now it seems like a little bit over 2 miles of the trail is going to be decommissioned.
All right, and for those who aren't really familiar of what is going to look like with a decommissioning, I'm envisioning kind of what when you're at the intersection of Spencer and Trace and you look to your left a little bit on the old Spencer, it looks like it was just covered up and just given back to nature.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen to an extent. The trail has degraded to the point where, it's running a lot of sediment into streams and everything else like that. So the decommissioning is, per Forest Service standards, going to be a little bit involved. And, rock's going to have to be moved around, trees and, debris on the ground is going to have to be moved around. And then we're actually going to have some stuff, vegetation, trees, whatever, planted in order to help mitigate and stop erosion. It's not going to be something that's just like a few trees thrown across it and leaves thrown across it and looks like no one's ridden it in a while. It's not going to be a trail anymore.
There are sections of Middle Black that are literally a ditch. So I imagine some of that stuff is going to need to be heavily modified so that it's not continuing to just lead down the mountain to the river.
Right. And, some of this decommissioning work will be done by volunteers through Pisgah area SORBA, but a lot of the decommissioning work is going to be done by Shrimper, by Single Track Trails and their whole crew. And, they're going to be doing it with machines and heavy equipment in order to just move the amount of dirt that needs to be moved, and, the logs that need to be put in place and rocks that need to be moved and all of that. So,
my first time riding Black Mountain Trail was with you, and I believe that was in like maybe 2013, maybe 2000.
Was that time that we didn't turn right and we went all the way up to the top?
We intended to ride Middle Black, but then we went all the way up to Upper Black.
Yeah, I'd not ridden in a while, and I think we just got carried away talking or something going up the hill. And, I think right about the time we got closer to higher up, I was like, oh, yeah, we definitely missed the turn. And I don't think I led on to you quite as quickly as I knew to myself that we missed the turn. And so, yeah, we got up there, and I don't think you had hardly any food, but we were getting late in the day, and I think we were getting...
I think late in the day is an understatement. I think I had a Cliff Bar, and we had a really awesome sunset part of the way up the hike-a-bike.
Yeah, and I think you completely bonked on that ride. This was when you were a little bit newer to mountain bikes too, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
I knew where we were at that point, and Mangler had never ridden this trail, and I was like, hey, man, so, we kind of got to keep moving at this point. And, he's like, well, this view's really cool. I was like, nah, we don't have time to take in the view. Like, I know you're tired, but the crazy thing about it being dark and us not having lights up here is the longer we're up here and the slower that we go, the sketchier that it gets. And we were descending upper, and it was dark.
Yeah.
I think we got to, the bottom of upper and went down the fire road. Did we? Or was that another bad experience?
No, that was the experience.
Okay.
Because it was dark, and so we dropped down the fire road.
Yeah, and I think it was sketchy even going down the fire road.
Yeah, for sure. Like dropping down, the Maxwell Forest Road climb. I never want to do that again, but I think I actually have done it once before.
I've done it a few times. Sometimes things happen when you're riding, and you have to go back.
But what was good about that is I knew what the harder parts of riding Black Mountain were like. And I believe it was like 6 months later or so, we went back and we made a fun little video of doing a full black run.
Oh, I remember that. Man, it's time to make another one of those.
This was like 2013, I think, when we made that video.
What, 8+ years ago?
Yeah. And I think I've probably ridden full black 30-ish times total. I watched that video before we got on this recording, and just looking at the trail then and thinking back of the last time I rode some of that stuff, especially middle black, because I probably ride it more than full black, but how much it's changed over the past 8 years.
It's a lot. And I think, for those people that have ridden here for a long time, even longer, it's changed a whole lot. I mean, none of that was a ditch. It was all pretty chill single track. Mm-hmm. When I first rode that trail, I was 14 years old. I had a Trek 6500 that was at least one size too big for me. I was in camp at Camp Toccoa. But yeah, we rode all around Pisgah, rode Black Mountain, no problem. V-brakes, disc brakes were not a thing back then. That trail was totally rideable on that bike by me at that time, with a very, very beginner skill set. And nowadays, I would not take that bike down that trail.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how do you think you would fare today on a full black run on the Trek 6500?
It would be a run. I'd be on foot. That's exactly what it would be. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Like, yeah, I could pick my way down it. I'll go out and ride my road bike or a cyclocross, gravel, whatever bike down all sorts of stuff. I rode it down Bennett one time. You can pick your way down trails, but you're not having fun. It's like
it's work.
You're working the whole time on not dying.
It's more work than fun.
Way more.
At some point over the past 5 years, Shrimper actually did some more work on Upper Black.
Yeah, that's correct.
If you've ridden Upper Black, you've seen the work that Shrimper does, and so that's going to be applied for the rest of the trail. Now, as far as construction phase stuff, what are we looking at, like, with a timeline?
Construction's going to begin very soon. I would expect to see machines and people up in the woods here in the coming days even. Everything's already been flagged. It's been GPSed. The trail has been walked by a ton of people, including the Forest Service. NEPA studies, like environmental studies, all of that stuff has been done. That was all done months and months and months ago. This grant was actually originally applied for in 2017. And then just to random delays. And then last year with COVID, it is just now that all this work's getting going. And so it's been under a lot of eyes, and it's been very well thought out and very well scoped out, from the Forest Service to Shrimper and single track trails to Pisgah area SORBA. The Pisgah Conservancy has been involved. A ton of people have had eyes on this and, input in the planning and design.
Shovels are going in the ground in the next potentially couple of days. What does that mean for the current trail of Black Mountain right now? When construction starts, can we still ride full black?
So the work's going to be done on phases. The top Upper Black and the Middle Black are going to be done separately. And so with Middle Black, all the new trail is going to be built before the older trail is closed and decommissioned. There's not going to be any time period where you really can't ride Middle Black, whether it's old trail or new trail. With Upper Black Mountain, once some of the construction is done, there will be closures from Turkey Pen down to Presley. And that's because the new trail crisscrosses a bunch, and then a lot of the rocks and materials that are in the old trail are going to be used in the new trail, and that's just going to be very easy for them to kind of decommission it as they go with that. And so it will be closed partially and then fully and then reopened. And we don't have an exact timeline for that, but just stay tuned to social media, and we will get all those trail closures and information out before they happen.
Okay, so that's good to know. So it's
Yeah,
not
totally. We don't want anyone like going up there and doing all the work to get up to the top and then being like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to go to Turkey Pen and, totally run out of water and food, or just back down.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that to people. And we're going to have signs and information everywhere, signs, information at local bike shops, breweries, trailheads, and so on.
It's not going to be one of those things where it's closed and there's just tape across the trail. Like, the trail literally will be like in the process of being decommissioned, so it's not like it's going to be rideable.
Yeah, and that too, it's not going to be rideable, and if you're like, you get down there and you're trying to walk through it and everything, you're just probably going to twist your ankle or step on a snake. And B, you're getting in the way of people doing all the trail work, and it's going to make it take longer. It's not respectful of what they're doing. These guys and girls are going to be up there doing a lot of really, really hard work, back-breaking work, and they kind of need to be able to move around without worrying about people coming down and people asking them questions and, critiquing what they're doing, whatever. They're experts. They know what's up.
Yeah, and also, we're still in a pandemic, so probably people we don't know, so definitely respect them doing their work and give them their space.
Yeah, I mean, just like everyone should be with every rider right now,
If someone's wanting to volunteer or help out, what is the best course of going about that?
So we're going to have information up on social media and on Pisgah Area SORBA's website. So just stay tuned to those for figuring out, ways to volunteer, ways to get involved. There are some really awesome fundraisers that are happening that would be, huge ways to help. Pisgah Coffee Roasters did a big coffee fundraiser, and that is wrapping up right now, but they made a special roast just for this project. It's called the Friends of Shrimper. It's a deep pea berry roast.
Ooh.
And they are selling that online and in their retail store near Pisgah Forest. Oscar Blues has a local beer that they've brewed and crafted to help fund improvements to the trail system. They're calling it the Middle Black IPA, and it's on tap at Oscar Blues in Brevard.
Nice.
Yeah. Another big thing is there is a bike raffle going on right now. And so Sycamore Cycles has partnered with Pisgah area SORBA and some other industry partners to put together a specialized status. And so the status is a bike that's not the easiest bike to find right now. And so, it's a 160 millimeter travel MX bike, 29-inch front wheel, 27.5-inch rear wheel. Some people call it a mullet. And it has i9 Enduro wheels, SRAM X01 drivetrain, code brakes, P&W dropper, ergon bits and components, Thompson bar, and, some other bits and pieces from Wooltooth.
Man, that just sounds like a Pisgah shredding bike.
And yeah, it is a Pisgah shredding bike. I think it'd be really awesome riding anywhere around this area. It climbs pretty well, descends great. Take it over to Canuga. Sky's the limit with that bike. Literally, it likes to fly.
A lot of good info here. A lot of good ways that you can put your dollars to work to help out.
And with the fundraising with that recreational trail program grant, the RTP grant, the actual cost of constructing this trail and this construction project is $125,000 or so. And that grant covers $100,000. And then we've got to come up with the other $25,000. And so we're on the hook for that. And we're working with these fundraisers and everything else in order to meet that. And any way anyone wants to help is great. And so, yeah.
All right. So those are some great ways you can put your dollars to work and help out. Now, as far as a finish date, I know that's kind of hard to estimate right now, but what's kind of on the timetable right now?
The way these grants work is the state checks in on progress and how the project's going from time to time, and it has to be completed by a certain date. And so September is kind of our hard deadline on when this needs to be completed. There's ways that we can extend the deadline or whatever if we need to, but that's not ideal. And so we have been told, and we are very sure, we know the scope of the work. It's going to be completed by September, and it could be completed sooner. We don't know. If you've been around the area very much, the weather can be extremely volatile, and that's got to be factored in. It could be just amazing weather all spring and the first part of summer and everything go really quickly, or it could be horrible weather and it take a little bit longer. Yeah, it's nature and we're in the mountains, but this project should be wrapped up by September. Just in time for fall riding.
Oh, man, I can't wait. Now, one thing we didn't touch on is the new trail. It's probably not going to be as steep in some areas because that just wasn't sustainable in the past. From when you hiked it with Shrimper, what is the descending to climbing ratio like? Because that's really what a lot of people love about Black Mountain is once you get to the top, except for that middle black climb, it's just ripping downhill the whole time.
It's the same. It's actually more descending, I think. So, we're descending from Turkey Pen all the way down to Presley, a small climb, and then you're descending the whole way down again. And it's cool. There's going to be a lot of bench cut single track. It is a really cool topography out there. There's some incredible winter views, and it's going to be relatively narrow, rocky. There's going to be a lot of cool rock features, and it's going to be sustainable for a lot of heavy use and typical Western North Carolina mountain weather. And that's the coolest part about it.
Well, I can't wait to see what Shrimper and the crew come up with.
Yeah, it's exciting. And, we have to thank everyone that's been involved, from the Forest Service to single track trails, the Pisgah Conservancy, local bike shops, the Hub, Sycamore Cycles, and others have all been involved with this. Other industry partners like, Pisgah Coffee Roasters, Oscar Blues, and so on and so forth. The list is immense, as well as all the volunteers. A ton of people are just volunteering time to help get this done and going out there and working and checking on progress as things go. And so it's really cool to see the whole community coming together for this project. And, I think we're going to have the potential for some other really cool projects in the future. And yeah, that's what it's all about. Ride bikes, have fun.
Ride bikes, have fun. Well, sweet. Well, awesome, Daniel. Thank you so much for giving us a good update on kind of what's going on in the forest.
Yeah, anytime, Michael. Thanks for having me on. And let's get out for a ride soon.
So, some updates since we recorded last week with Daniel. Construction on the trail will start anytime this week with some corridor clearing. This will cut out some roto, clearing some brush, some deadfall. And schedule-wise, Middle Black will be worked on first. The plan is to get the new trail done before the current version of Middle Black is closed, so Middle Black is not going to be shut down anytime soon.
So that answers that. Had a lot of questions to us coming about that. Upper Black from Turkey Pen down will start after Middle Black is complete. With that section of trail, there probably will be some trail closures of Upper Black because the new section of trail crisscrosses it multiple times, but proper notification should be given when that time comes. The best thing to do is to just follow Pisgah Area SORBA on social media, and we also will try to keep you up to date on that. And most importantly, please respect the closures, and also please respect the trail crew doing their thing. Practice social distancing, let them do their thing. They're going to have like big tools, big machines, chainsaws, stuff like that. So safety is a priority as well.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind is that this isn't some out-of-town, unknown trail building company doing this. It's Shrimper, and if anybody knows Pisgah trails, it's going to be him, so he's going to help keep the flavor alive.
Oh, absolutely. And Pisgah Area SORBA has been putting a ton of work into this project over the last few years. They're being very passionate about the project, as is their partners involved. So I feel like this is going to be nothing short of awesome in the end.
And so speaking of awesome, how's the weather look for the next week?
Well, like our usual mountain weather, it's somewhat all over the place depending on where you're at. But it's dry. Some rain wouldn't hurt, but not too much rain though. Forecast-wise, it looks like we may have a chance of some rain and thunderstorms on Saturday, and then mostly sunny and warm going into maybe some PM or AM showers Wednesday or Thursday next week. But overall, staying warm. It'd probably be pretty good camping weather with lows getting down to the 40s. But it is Pisgah, it is mountain weather, so this stuff can always change on you.
Yeah, don't take our word for the weather. Just leave that to the pros. But for the most part, yeah, it looks like we might get some humidity move in, but otherwise it's probably going to be okay.
Drew, you got any riding plans for the weekend?
I've got a friend coming in town from Charlotte, and we're hoping to get some gravel laps in on Sunday. I'm open to suggestions on Saturday. What have you got in mind?
I've got a work trip coming up next week, so I'm going to make hay while the sun is shining and ride every little bit I can going forward. And I'm still trying to take it a little easier, but, getting my miles back in.
Right on. That's good to hear.
Well, guys, that is a wrap on this episode of the Pisgah Podcast. And as always, you can find us on social media. Just search Pisgah Podcast.
And if you are going to go out and get a legacy Strava time on full black, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
Now, are we talking claw hammer to upper black and down, or are we talking full out and black?
That's a good call. How we get up to the top and get back to the bottom is important.